Hi everyone, Deepcut here. Welcome back to Cartoon Universe. Just wanted to take a moment to thank you guys for the warm welcome you've all given me. I wasn't expecting that. It was a really great start to me working on this channel, and I hope I can continue to produce content that you all really enjoy. Today we're going to be talking about Infinity Train, which, for those of you who don't know, finally got greenlit for its own series. Personally, I hadn't seen the pilot until just today, but I'm really glad I finally took the time to watch it. It was a really great example of concise writing, especially for a pilot, in just 8 minutes. From the characters, to the emotion, to the journey, to the mystery, to the plot, to the depth, it just really brought it all together. Very similar to Steven Universe's pilot, in my opinion. They really managed to fit so much into such a small amount of time. For those who haven't seen it yet, Infinity Train is about a young girl named Tulip who finds herself aboard the Infinity Train. Each cart on that train that she travels through is kind of its own little microcosm. Some of them are as small as a regular train cart, but all seem to have some obstacles, such as a chessboard, or just a puzzle, or even just a room full of farts. It does a really great job of balancing the comedy and more childish aspects of a cartoon with these really dark undertones. It's similar to that of Gravity Falls or Over the Garden Wall, where it's definitely kid-friendly, but it makes you a little uncomfortable. In fact, the first world she goes to, the Kingdom of Corgis, is actually really unsettling, more so than if they had just brought her to some sort of hellish dimension. I am not surprised that the show already has its own dedicated subreddit, and actually has for quite some time now. It has a very interesting way of hooking people into it really early on. It's really hard to do a good pilot, and they just really did a great job with it here, and I only see the fandom just exploding even further as they release actual episodes. Unfortunately, we won't actually get any of these episodes until sometime in 2019, and as of now, that's the only information we really got. Could be early, could be late, no one really knows. But it is coming, we do know that. One thing I really like about this show is that it has the potential to be really serious and really emotional right from the get-go, as illustrated in their pilot. Of course, Steven Universe had a similar emotional punch, though not nearly as much in my opinion. But they spent the first 26 episodes really just building the world around Steven Universe and filling it up with simple, childlike, easy-to-digest morals and themes while they just built their world for us to enjoy the meat of later. Infinity Train, on the other hand, seems to be built on this idea of a lack of rules. Because every episode will feature a different world, there isn't that much world building that goes into the overarching importance of the series. Obviously, what strings the train together is going to be rather important, but those are more tied to the mystery as opposed to the premise. So I think we have a lot of potential for something more straight to the point, getting us into what this character's journey is, instead of a series of underwhelming, funny events that don't really matter later, just so we can start to understand the world. One of the things I'm most concerned about with the show is just the lack of characters, and really the lack of potential characters that can even come in. At the moment, we really only know of Tulip and her conjoined robots called Glad One and Sad One, but they're just a talking robot ball. They're very funny, and they give Tulip something to bounce off of, but it's not something I'm looking forward to in terms of character development. With Steven Universe, we had 4 really amazing characters right from the get-go. Not only were their personalities just upfront and concise, they just screamed history, what with the mystery surrounding them. I'm not saying Sad One and Glad One can't have depth, and I'm sure they will do episodes themed after them, but I feel like there's maybe 1 or 2 episodes they can get to maybe make me care, and that'd really be it. And even then, I'm just not super sold on them. They work more as a storytelling device and just a vehicle for humor than as actual characters. Now, there's always the possibility that we'll meet other new characters along the way. Steven Universe, of course, introduces to Lapis, Peridot, Jasper, and a lot of other recurring characters that didn't show up, even in the first season, really. At least not until the end. The problem with Infinity Train is that good character development is rooted in the character's history, and with each world being radically different, it's kind of hard to explore that history with a constantly changing world. On top of that, if there are other characters like Tulip who exist outside of the Infinity Train, there's this cloud of suspicion that the show doesn't seem to want us to know what lies outside of that. So it can be really hard to develop new characters, let alone old characters, with this kind of setup. One really popular format that comes to mind is the Character of the Week, where in each week we of course meet new characters. In this first one, we met Atticus, who was the king of the Corgi land, and each world has the potential to introduce us to a new character. I'm not personally a fan of that format. I think especially with 11-minute episodes, it's really hard to find depth in those characters. Even in Steven Universe, it took a long time before we can say, wow, something emotional is happening here. And I worry that we're just going to get this long string of fillery kind of development that isn't what I want necessarily. Another concern that I have is the longevity of the show. It's really easy for a show to get renewed for more and more seasons and kind of lose itself along the way. Steven Universe has done a pretty good job of stretching itself thin, in my opinion, but most good shows, particularly in cartoons that have this giant overarching plot, especially with mystery, tend to be shorter. If you look at Avatar or Gravity Falls, some of the greatest cartoons of our time that dealt with this overarching narrative, let alone just their serious tones, they both had really short runs. Now that doesn't mean they have to be miniseries like an Over the Garden Wall, but if you take something like Infinity Train and stretch it out to 7 seasons, it's going to get old really fast, and it's going to lose its intended point somewhere along the way. The creator has said that he's mapped out Tulip's entire journey, as well as all the worlds that they're going to go to, so it's possible that this has already been slated to be a miniseries, but there isn't a confirmation on that yet, so we don't really know. Whatever the case, we just have to hope that he doesn't lose sight of his goals if it does get stretched out to more and more seasons. The final thing that concerns me is the comparisons to Over the Garden Wall. Apparently Cartoon Network itself thought that Infinity Train was too similar to Over the Garden Wall, and that's probably why it didn't get produced any sooner. Even the creator of the show itself has watched Over the Garden Wall, noted the similarities, and has gone back to tweak his own story. I really just hope that it's not another case of they were quasi, almost kind of dead, and that's Infinity Train's just some sort of purgatory. In my opinion, that's like a really cliche wannabe ending. Until Over the Garden Wall, that's what most people, when they create theories for cartoons, it's always, oh, the characters are dead all along. Which is great, it's fun, but for multiple overarching shows to start having that ending, it really doesn't seem that creative. Since then, he has said he changed his plot, or at least some of the details about it, so hopefully it doesn't end the same way, and hopefully it doesn't end up worse because of it. There are a lot of pieces that are already in place, what with the train, the number on her hand, and the weird steward character. Hopefully it all ties together still. Well, that's all the news we got for today. I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you enjoyed the last one. Thank you again so much for the warm welcome you've given me here, and let me know what you guys think about Infinity Train. I'm not usually really big on investing in shows. Steven Universe, it took like 50 episodes before I was going to say, yeah, I think I like this show. But Infinity Train already, at the very least, piques my interest already, and I'm curious what you all think as well. And I guess here are our Patreon sponsors.